there are actually epigenetic studies showing how you can modify that gene expression to an extent, actually with estrogen supplementation. But again, even just with cognitive function type of test, whether it is quite literally like a board game, right? A card game, a memory game. Again, come on, people, exercise, right? Eating healthy, making those right lifestyle choices. I mean, so many connections and being able to reduce your risk for cognitive decline as you become older as well.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your health coach and host, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. And today we're building off of last week's episode, plus two questions that came up at the Salad with a Side of Fries live event earlier this year. So those two questions were, if you're generally well, how do you know what to focus on? And the other question was about blood work or tests that you might want to ask for. And then last week, we discussed 8 domains of health as areas that you might want to look at and thinking about your status in each area on a scale of -10 to +10, realizing that there's a difference between disease, being generally well, and optimal health, right? That's sort of the spectrum. So we talked about a way to prioritize which domain you focus on. And today is another way to figure out what domain of health deserves your attention. So my question to you today is, have you heard of biological age? Maybe you saw the episode of the Kardashians earlier this year in 2024, where they took a test to see how they're aging. So that test is what we're talking about today with an absolutely incredible guest. She is the co-founder of TruDiagnostic, which is the test that the Kardashians took. So let me better introduce you. She's had a lifelong passion for longevity and breakthrough disruptive technologies that drive radical improvement to the human condition. She attended the University of Kentucky and graduated with a degree in biology. During that time, she had multiple research internships studying cell signaling and cell biology. After graduation, she worked for the International Peptide Society as their director of research and content. Through work in integrative medicine industry, she saw an opportunity for methylation-based age diagnostics and started TruDiagnostic in 2020. TruDiagnostic is a company focusing on methylation array-based diagnostics for life extension and preventative healthcare, serving functional medicine providers. TruDiagnostic has a commitment to research with over 30 approved clinical trials investigating the epigenetic methylation changes of longevity and health interventions. Since inception, they've created one of the largest private epigenetic health databases in the world with over 75,000 patients tested to date. Since then, our guest has created Everything Epigenetics, where she shares insights on how DNA regulation has an impact on your health. Without further ado, I give you Hannah Wendt.
What an introduction. Thanks, Jen. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here today and chat with you on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you because in our last conversation, I felt like we had so much to talk about that this time I'm excited for everyone to hear it.
Yeah, it was really good. I think we talked for I remember I went on a walk when we were chatting for, it was like 45 minutes or an hour. And it was great. We kept going and diving into a little bit of everything. So excited to share it with your listeners.
Yeah, and I'm super excited too, because epigenetics isn't necessarily new for this audience because we've talked about it a few times. So for everybody, if you're listening now and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? Go back, right? You can search your feed. We'll put links in the episode notes also for some. I think I did a dedicated nutrition nugget on epigenetics, so we'll put that in there for everybody. Really quick, Hannah, before we dig in deeper, I want to tell our members what they're getting. So members, if you're listening the day this goes live, happy Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow. And if you're like me, after a holiday like Thanksgiving, sure, there's like leftovers, but I'm also looking for my usuals, my go-tos, like something that's a little lighter. So that's why this week your recipe is for the ultimate winter salad. I know we can get sick of salads, and certainly colder weather makes us want not salads, but this one is light yet still super satisfying. You know, if you eat it right after you make it too, there's like warm elements in there. So good. The dressing, by the way, is also amazing. So if you want this recipe, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries for just $10 a month. You get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tools, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus live Q&A sessions with me. It's a total deal. I say it every time. It's a steal because when you take advantage of the full offerings, you're saving far more than that $10 cost. It's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, your membership supports this podcast and this community so that we can continue to bring you new episodes every week. So remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or actually just click the link in the episode notes because then you don't have to remember a whole thing. Once you're there, you click the little I agree button and then support now. Enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You're going to get this week's recipe for the ultimate winter salad. All right, so Hannah, we heard your background in your bio, so I want to just jump right in. I've talked about epigenetics in a few episodes, but I'd love to hear how you explain it, and then we can make sure that like everybody's on the same page too.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is a good starter question, and there are a lot of really fun ways you can explain it as well. I think one of my favorites is really just breaking down the word. So epi is a Greek prefix that actually just means above or on top of. So we're quite literally just looking on top of your genetics. And I think, you know, assuming your audiences, maybe some of them aren't familiar with epigenetics, I'm sure they're familiar with genetics as well, right? It's that hardware pre-installed, 50% from parent one, 50% from parent two. It does not change. And epigenetics is the complete opposite, which makes it such a cool area of biomarker discovery, essentially, and really applies to anything in the scientific realm as well. So these markers, for the most part, aren't inherited. Some can be. That's a big area of discovery as well, called these imprinto markers, actually. And we won't get too much into that today, but they're changeable as well. So it's quite literally how you are interacting with your environment and your behavior with yourself, first off, the world, right? Friends, family members, social aspect, emotional, physical, spiritual, etc. So it's very powerful, right? Like you're in charge of this. You can change your epigenetics and control your health. You can no longer blame, you know, your predisposition for disease based on like your second cousin's 23andMe genetic results or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said there, that like we are in control of our health, that genetics are this predisposition, but not a determining, you know, inherent absolute.
Yeah.
Because of how we live our lives. And so by that token, then you guys do this looking at a blood sample. How does it work? Like, what are you looking at in the blood that then gets to all of these things that we're going to keep talking about as far as like what it says about how we're living our lives?
Yeah, of course. So we use a blood spot card analyses here at TruDiagnostic. You'll see some other companies use like maybe saliva or even like a urine sample. Blood is where a lot of these algorithmic interpretations have actually been validated and published in and on. And we know your epigenetic signature is going to be different in every single cell type. So it's really important to test with the same sample type in which the algorithmic creation was determined in. So we, you know, send you a kit, you prick your finger, you send it back to our lab in Lexington, Kentucky. We own our own lab. We don't outsource to any other third parties. And we're essentially looking at a specific epigenetic modification, right? There are many different kind of epigenetic modifications or ways we can look at our genetic expression levels. So we're quite literally looking at these on and off switches on top of our genes. So we're looking at a CH3 group, just a carbon and 3 hydrogens. And if that little group is present, your gene expression is turned off. But if that little group is not present, then that's considered unmethylated and your gene expression is turned on. So it's not like, hey, we want to be super methylated or not methylated, right? We want to have this balance. I really like to call it, you know, shifting your epigenetic markers in your favor. It's definitely a balance game.
Yeah, and you're using the word methylated and like methylation, and I think our listeners are more familiar with that in the context of understanding B vitamins or, right, this process of like our body converting things into a usable form.
Yeah.
What does methylation mean in this context?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really just an epigenetic modification again, right, involving the addition of methyl groups to DNA molecules, so particularly at certain cytosine bases. So we know that that doesn't actually, again, change the genetic code, but just modifies how genes are expressed. So again, start to think of it like a dimmer switch for gene activity, like a light switch dimmer, right? Some are dimmed, turned down or off, while others may stay active. And this process, we know, again, plays a really critical role in aging and in health by regulating that gene expression based on really everything we do in life, right? Diet, stress, lifestyle, et cetera. So I think, again, most people, myself even, being biology trained, going through like genetic courses in college, right? I was used to hearing like the COMT, the MTHFR, like these genetic pathways. That's a very important methylation pathway, but it's just one out of the 50 million we have in our body. So we're kind of looking at like a broader scale and not so dialed into a particular gene position.
Yeah. And this is, I want everybody to understand, like this might be new to you because it is new, right? Like as a methodology, as like its own sort of biomarker compared to blood tests that somebody might be getting from their doctor, like this is new and different, right?
Yeah. Very new and different. It's actually, I always like to tell people this little fun fact. It's newer than the first iPhone, right? So like it's super new. I mean, this technology really was first, not the technology, but like the idea that we can look at epigenetic markers for prediction models and kind of aging really was discovered in 2013 by someone named Dr. Steve Horvath out of UCLA. And since then, I mean, the field has really just boomed. I can't even keep up with all of the research in this growing area, but that's what makes it so exciting. And kind of back to your question, like, hey, how is this different than, what you're getting in the lab? It is different right now, right? Where you're going into your lab and you're measuring certain like fasting glucose or insulin sensitivity based markers, HbA1c, maybe like CRP, IL-6 and inflammatory based markers as well. We can actually report those out through epigenetics too, but it's more of like a computation. And we see sometimes that epigenetics is actually a better marker in some cases in terms of disease predictability, odds ratios, hazard ratio. And that's really the point of a biomarker, right? Is, hey, how close can we get to that disease prediction? Because we want to be able to reverse it and affect it.
Okay, so before we get into all the questions that I think are coming, like, we want to talk about what we can learn from these tests. I think there's two things that I want to ask, and they're probably annoying questions to you, but I want to ask them anyway, because I want to make sure that like we're calming this potential hesitation.
Let's do it.
So, okay, this is kind of like a fingerprint for your body. So how close or far from Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos is what you're doing?
I love that question. We get it more often than you probably think. One time I was actually on a call. It was like winter. I think this was last year. I had like my hair up in a bun and I had a black turtleneck on and I was like taking these calls and someone was like, you kind of look like Elizabeth Holmes. I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be wearing this. I was like, thanks for the reminder. And they were nice, they were joking, but super valid question. And, epigenetic and Theranos are very, very different, right? Theranos claimed to offer a wide range of like more traditional lab tests with minimal blood. And they even had like that machine in office where they were kind of like, sequencing the sample, like right in real time and in a really quick manner. I don't know the exact technology they were using, air quotes. When epigenetic testing, is focusing on, interpreting specific epigenetic patterns to gain insights into aging, health. And here's the key here. With scientific backing and validated technology, right? So even though I mentioned, hey, we can impute specific things through the lens of epigenetics, epigenetic tests are not a replacement yet, right, for traditional lab tests. Instead, they're just providing like a unique layer of insight, again, into really how your environment and lifestyle may be affecting your particular genes.
Yeah. And then my second question is, I mentioned this in introducing you, that you guys now have this database of like 75,000 samples. And you mentioned you own your own lab. And one of my personal pet peeves with some of the companies that have done genetic testing before, and I'll even say I used to, in my practice, have access to a genetic test that we didn't tie people's information to the sample. And because sort of the use of the test wasn't the moneymaker itself, there were, data privacy things in place where like that wasn't how we were going to make the money on like having this database of information, right? Mm-hmm. One of my pet peeves with other genetic tests that were out there is the tests were relatively inexpensive. So you're sort of going, what is the moneymaker here? Like, where is their revenue model? And pharmaceutical companies were major shareholders. And so my brain went to inevitably, like, who's going to have access to and use this information?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, rightfully so.
So can you speak a little bit to what you guys do on this in terms of people's data and epigenetic information and feeling comfortable with that?
Of course. And you mentioned something, at the beginning too, right? We have one of the largest private epigenetic databases in the world. So we're a private company. I think that's super important. No plans to go public or anything as of now. And, we're a very small team. Every single sample gets sent through our lab. We're a CLIA, CLEP certified lab. So we follow all of the rules, processes, and procedures that essentially Quest, LabCorp, they're held to the same standards. And in addition to that, we're HIPAA compliant, SOC 2 compliant, right? Again, we're kind of just checking the boxes everywhere. I think something that makes epigenetics really unique, though, compared to genetics is like your genes, again, are your genes, right? They're not changing. If anyone gets a hold of that raw data file, which we know it's happened plenty of times with really large companies, they know you, right? That is you. With your epigenetics, they're always changing. You're never able to actually identify someone by like a raw kind of data epigenetic file. It's essentially a lot of like numbers, right? They're intensity kind of methylation markers. It's called a beta value between 0 and 1. And that kind of tells you where you're at on that scale for that particular location. And also you can actually register like without a name or any personal information too. So we have like a little barcode that gets tied to you, and you can remain anonymous if you want to as well. So we're always making sure we're, updating that safety profile. So the epigenetic data, again, is securely stored. We don't share it with any type of pharmaceutical companies or third parties as well, and give people ownership, right? They can always erase their files or their profiles and have strict regulatory standards to ensure that data safety.
Excellent. All right. So with that, I want to get into and talk more about what the test can tell us and sort of interpreting the results, how we translate all this epigenetic information into like action steps that we can take. Let's do all that after a quick break to highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Layered Jewelry for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. The modern woman is multifaceted, taking on important roles in the various aspects of her life. Inspired by her own multi-layered life as a busy mom, trendsetter, entrepreneur, and influencer, Amber Ridinger McLaughlin set out to create a line of luxury jewelry that lets women create their unique style and celebrate their own beautiful layers. Layered is luxurious and affordable, the perfect combination for the modern woman. Layered allows you to mix, match, stack, and layer pieces that make you feel empowered and beautiful. Each piece is handcrafted to be unique and exquisite just for you. So with the holiday season here, if you're looking for a gift for anyone on your list, I highly recommend Layered. The latest collection is called Timeless, and it is exactly that. I'm obsessed with the bracelets. I love the Marissa. It's like 2-in-1 for $120. They have options virtually at every price point. Plus, you get 10% off and free shipping for being a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So simply text the word LAYERED, LAYERED, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word LAYERED, LAYERED, to 844-947-4846 to get this handcrafted, luxurious, yet affordable jewelry at 10% off and free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Hannah, in the epigenetic test, it's looking at lifestyle's impact on our genes. Biological age versus chronological age. So we have a lot of people interested in aging, but what else can we learn, like based on the research and the implications of these findings? Like this goes beyond aging.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the question is like, what can't it tell us right now? Because there's so many things, especially even the new product we, launched earlier or last week, a week from today, actually, too. So we can tell you all sorts of different things. I think one of the most simple ones to understand is really even someone's like smoking history or alcohol consumption. It's been shown in research that if you look at someone's epigenetics, it's actually more accurate than their self-reported smoking status and their self-reporting alcohol consumption score, right? And I think that's super useful for a couple reasons. Kind of shows you your behavior, right? Whether you're overestimating or underestimating in one way. And when people get this like report back, it's tangible, right? It's something that they see where they're like, oh, if I continue on this path, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, hey, this is where I'm going to end up. Like, I need to make a change. And, we have some healthcare providers that just use our test. They do the full panel and they mainly focus on like the alcohol consumption report and the smoking habit report as well. One of the favorite outcomes too that I'll talk about is we have like a physical fitness age. So it's like a fun kind of characteristic or trait-based report. It shouldn't be as like heavily weighted as your true biological age that we report out, but it's actually powered by VO2 max, FEV1, grip strength, and gait speed. All through that finger prick blood spot card. So usually when I say like VO2 max, people are like, wait, what a second, how are you computing that, right? You don't have to go in, you don't have to do the really hard test, and pay a lot for it. There's a lot of accessibility issues with VO2 max test as well. So basically, again, to have this outcome, we took people's epigenetic markers at the same time they did their VO2 max, their FEV1, their grip strength, and their gait speed test. And again, it's like a regression model where you're able to regress those outcomes against the blood spot card information and then just impute VO2 max, right? So you can start to learn, hey, wait, I'm not doing a lot of aerobic based exercise. Maybe I need to focus on that more, but my anaerobic based exercise looks great. So again, it's giving people real-time feedback to work on themselves. And I think that's really important is you need to take the test, but you need something to do about the results as well. You need some recommendations. And the key, as with even blood-based testing, basically any test where you want to see change, is that longitudinal testing after you make a change, right? So usually I would say people are doing the test like every 6 months or so. You could do it as soon as every 3 to 4 months as well if you wanted to measure it a little bit more closely.
And I think it depends what you're specifically looking at. Like with some of my clients, like I'll even recommend blood work, at that 12 to 16 week mark so that we can then continue to tweak from there before they're maybe going back to their physician, at the 6 month mark, right? Like, let's see, are we progressing at the speed that we want to be?
Yeah.
Where are we? How much progress are we making? And you guys have a lot of studies around some of this stuff. Will you share some of the key insights and, some of the studies around the epigenetic information?
Yeah. One of my favorite papers, we actually just released it. This is a preprint that'll be published very, very soon. But one of my favorites is one we did with Yale. It's looking at 51 interventional trials, clinical interventional trials on humans, and they're mostly like longevity-based interventions too. It was the first of its kind study that analyzed like diet, exercise, pharmacological, therapeutic modifications on an array of multiple biological age clocks to identify like which are most effective at slowing aging. So there's like 3 points that I'll make here, and we can dive into it as much as you want. But it's the very first meta-analysis of its kind. So, right, these biological age clocks were created to give us a measuring stick for aging that can be used in real time, so we don't have to wait, 40 plus years to see how interventions help patients. So this is like the first ever study where it's like a head-to-head comparison of all of these tools, putting the research together. Number 2, it kind of identified this new classification of epigenetic clocks too, which refers to them as Gen X clocks. It's like explainable biological age clocks that offer more like detailed system specific insights into how different parts of the body are aging. So again, it allows people to track more efficiently and effectively, like specific areas into your metabolomic markers, immune markers, or cardiovascular health too. So again, we need to be specific here. We need to understand why or how we're aging and how to, slow it down, what we need to work on. And then number 3, one of the best parts was like for me personally is like, not only was TruDiagnostic found to be like the only company with these explainable clocks, but the results showed that the clocks are like the most responsive for measuring just interventional impact versus all of the other clocks. So that's a super, super exciting one. I'll name some of the other key findings here I think people are probably more interested in, which are, medications like metformin and anti-inflammatory treatment showed the strongest results for reducing biological age. And then just like, I know it's intuitive, but lifestyle choices, people, like especially things like the Mediterranean diet, just consistently improved health markers across multiple systems. So that's a really exciting study we're super proud of and super recent too.
Yeah, we're talking about aging. And really, I think there's potentially even a lack of clarity around what that even means.
Mm-hmm.
Like in biohacking, anti-aging, and in trends, anti-aging is a thing. But like when I think of anti-aging, right, or slowing aging or those kinds of things, it's because aging has become, I think, synonymous with like disease states. So is it that we're talking about slowing the progression of biomarkers that create disease? Like, how do you guys think about aging to understand this?
Oh, I love that. That's a good one. It's such a controversial question. Like you asked it in such an like different, like eloquent way. A lot of people I think argue like, oh, is aging a disease? Should we classify it and talk hours about that? I'm like, it doesn't really matter if aging's classified as a disease. It's just nomenclature, right? But the way you asked it, like, yes, are we picking up disease signals? Like, is this the way to do it? I think absolutely, right? Because if your biological age is accelerated, like that's just been shown to have one of our clocks has a 92% accuracy rate to predict death compared to chronological age, which is 72%. Right. So these biomarkers are just getting better and better at that. So yeah, you're right. We'll have markers in the future that are actually called methylation risk scores that will be for individual disease states. That'll probably be early next year. And we're taking that through FDA approval pathway process at the moment. So it'll get more specific over time. But yeah, aging is kind of like this generalized way we can say, hey, this is how close you are in terms of X, Y, and Z disease risk too. So I think that's great. I think the word biological aging gets thrown around a lot, right? And you're like, what does this mean? You see studies of people reversing biological age by like 10 years, and that's just like not possible, right? It's just not based off of what we've seen in our science, at least.
Yeah, and I love this because I do think part of what you're saying is like, we can look at these results and let it be a wake-up call to say, I may have different data as far as why I might want to make some lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
Or like I said in the beginning, that direction of if we feel generally well, right, what's happening that we aren't noticing yet?
Yeah. When we first started TruDiagnostic, like a lot of our healthcare providers were just testing their patients when they were like super healthy, right? And already optimized. Because, I mean, you get to that point where you're like, what's next? Hey, I just want to do the next best thing for me. What we're now seeing is like, people are doing this testing on their patients right when they're walking in the door. And it's so cool because then you can start to see how they make these changes and do like start shaving off a couple years here and there or slowing down their pace of aging. And I think people regret, not taking it when they were like not as healthy, right? And, unhealthy people can definitely see more of a change, right? Because they have more to work on. But it is just a good wake up call, even for myself. Like I'll test myself every now and then and start to realize, okay, like I need to rein it back in, or I need to, do these things. And I think simplicity is a big key as well, right? We see a lot of people over supplementing or, doing all of these kind of like machines, devices, like biohacking, if you will. And we've really learned like, one, you can't pinpoint what's working and what's not if you're doing that many things. But two, like, some of the biohacker reports that I've reviewed, sometimes they don't look the best. And it's really hard because, it's probably just too much. And there's not like a homeostatic level within the body. So starting out very simple lifestyle factors, nutrition, sleep, stress, exercise optimization is like key.
Yeah. I mean, hello, sound familiar, right? Nutrition, sleep, stress. What'd you say? Nutrition, sleep, stress.
Exercise.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about these all the time. And then going to what you were saying before, the smoking and alcohol pieces, I think are such critical factors that people often minimize if there was like a time in their life when they did these things more than maybe they do now. what do you guys see as far as, or maybe there's stories you can share as far as people making changes and then, what that looks like later, or even like you guys being able to say, oh, I can tell that you smoked, a pack a day or 5 cigarettes 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to add real quick before I answer your question too, I think like smoking, drinking, those are 2 great ones to add. I think I'd even add like insulin sensitivity on there, kind of like toxic load as well is another good one. So like those core like kind of lifestyle things that you are in control of, I mean, you can do a lot in that realm and just start there. Yeah, I think, it's funny. We did a webinar for our healthcare providers a couple weeks ago, and I did like the intro, and then our clinical geneticist, Melissa, did a review on like my own results and was like going through them. It was super fun and relatable, but stress is just bad for me. Like just always been a naturally like high functioning kind of stressed out person, but also like happy with that life. Like I like doing a lot of things at once and kind of go. But I do realize like, hey, I need to slow down. I got certified in transcendental meditation earlier this year. That's been helping like a ton. I'm still human. I don't do it every day. I do it to the best of my ability and just like slowing down and enjoying life, right? Like being able to, get off your phone, stop scrolling, not watching TV, right? Like when's the last time you just like sat by yourself, no technology, open up a book, right? And like let your mind relax. That's huge. And there are a ton of really reliable studies on epigenetics and stress. I think that's a huge factor.
Yeah. And so what did you see in your results that said, oh, the piece that I need is to manage stress?
Yeah. So my insulin-like growth factor binding protein 2 was super high and out of range. And naturally on my like labs as well, that matches up. My IGF-1 is like really, really high. Cortisol levels are super high as well. DHEA pretty high too. So it all aligns kind of just like clinically and epigenetically with stress. And, I can feel it. Like I'm aware of that as well. I had COVID at one point. Pretty bad case, which is a huge stressor on the body. And all of my aging metrics, I mean, like shot up. I'm still working on like chopping away at them and getting them down further and further. Actually, it was funny. I went on vacation for a couple weeks in Italy and kind of took my markers like before and after, and they actually went down. I like didn't work much. I like did kind of a full reset, ate some pasta, drank some wine, and I was like, wow, this is the life. I need to go on another vacation.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so how can we help people interpret information from this lab test or any lab test in a way that doesn't create alarm, right? Like we don't want to freak out about it. Like I think what you were saying before, like to me, the hopeful piece is recognizing like everything that's coming back here is modifiable.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think knowing that when you're taking the test, right? If anyone listening is like, oh, I might want to take this. I'm not really sure. I'm a little bit nervous. Like if you've done your genetics, right? This is changeable. That again is your power. And I think just health education, right? Like even talking to you, Jen, on this podcast right now, I love talking about epigenetics. That's why I created Everything Epigenetics and, do like study reviews and things like that. And just like spreading the word, right? You see things on social media nowadays that's like food is medicine, right? You are what you eat. Your DNA is not your destiny, right? Like a lot of people post about that. That's epigenetics. Like they're quite literally describing epigenetics without saying the word. So I think just, consumer education and awareness. I think the reports are super easy to understand with the recommendations right on there. So, we don't give like particular brands or anything like that, just more of like your general health and wellness and some supplement recommendations. And then you can choose like which company you like or who you want to go with too. So the simplicity, I think, of the reporting is really important. And we just updated that on our end too.
Yeah, not every company's reports are going to give you that information. So I do think it also makes the argument for working with somebody who can help interpret the information that's coming back and make some of those recommendations because, sidebar, quality of supplements is crazy important. Going back to the study you mentioned before, people taking stacks and stacks of things and not necessarily, seeing the benefit.
Yeah, of course. And that's a point I actually wanted to bring up too. I usually always say that, hey, work with a practitioner who's done this testing before and knows how to read it and may offer some other testing alongside to really optimize the use of those results, right? So I think that's critical. Like that is our customer, right? We mainly work with healthcare providers in the integrative functional medicine space. Longevity, wanting to extend lifespan and health span. So they're experts, right? They're experts in the utility or of the application of the testing as well. And I would say almost all of them who set up an account speak with me, right? Do some onboarding calls, do some report review calls. Again, we have like a lot of webinars and education to support the physicians so they can help support you in return.
Yeah. And the other thing, I almost want to go back before we wrap this up to something you had said before. And that is, I say this all the time. People get confused between what's truly genetic and what is inherited lifestyle. Because one of the other things, like something might run in your family, that doesn't necessarily mean it's genetic, because the other thing that runs in family is lifestyle choices. We learn our lifestyle from our family. So how can we sort of understand that nuance, with this test, or what might we need everybody to know on that front?
Oh, that's good. Can I give an example, like a personal example? Okay. This might make it more relatable. So I have an APOE3/4 variant, right? An Alzheimer's risk variant. So I'm at 20% like increase to actually get diagnosed with Alzheimer's compared to people who, don't have this variant and at a younger age as well. Like my grandmother passed away from it. Awful disease, right? And I know I have that variant. I can't change that variant. It is what it is. I'm very aware of it. It does make me nervous knowing a little bit, right?
Wait, I just want to pause. That information did or did not come from what somebody would learn with a TruDiagnostic test?
No, sorry, genetic test. Yep.
Perfect.
That was from a genetic test, right? So I can't change that, right? But there are actually epigenetic studies showing how you can modify that gene expression to an extent, actually with estrogen supplementation. But again, even just with cognitive function type of test, whether it is quite literally like a board game, right? A card game, a memory game. Again, come on, people, exercise, right? Eating healthy, making those right lifestyle choices. I mean, so many connections and being able to reduce your risk for cognitive decline as you become older as well. I do have, again, a genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's, but I have an epigenetic predisposition for Alzheimer's too. And that I can change and I'm in charge of. So I think knowing both are super important and combining them, right, to an extent. Does that answer your question kind of?
Yeah. And I also think part of what you're saying is like, we don't want to look at any one piece of information in isolation. Like even the information that comes back from any report. Yeah. We don't want to say, even like I talk about it with my clients too, like even when we take our own measurements, we're not going to look at any one measurement. We're going to look at all of the measurements for a more complete picture.
Yeah, love that. And that's the entire idea of what we're doing, right? Like one of our clocks is called omic age, like the idea of the multiome, right? We have, humans are like so complicated in the most beautiful way, right? Like all of these layers of biology, all the way from the cellular level to the phenome and how we look, right? Like why we have the color hair we do, if it's curly or straight, all of these different things. So I think you have to test in different ways to understand those different layers in your body, to your point.
Awesome. All right. Anything we missed? A final thought, something to wrap up?
Oh, again, I think if you're like interested in doing the test, check it out. Just, educate yourself about it, right? Read a little bit more on it as well. But we covered some like really unique, good questions that I haven't been asked before. So I think you covered a lot of it, Jen. You did a great job.
Oh, good. Awesome. All right. It is then time for our rapid fire off-topic questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
Best thing, meditating, working out. Worst thing, went out on Saturday, got some drinks with a friend.
Yeah. We're human, right?
But it was so fun.
And the holidays, right? And it's part of that relaxation that you talked about. Okay. If you weren't the co-founder of TruDiagnostic, what would you do?
Ooh, my dream job growing up was becoming a veterinarian at Animal Kingdom at Disney World.
All right. Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
Fiction book would be Name of the Wind by Patrick. I think his last name is like Rothfuss. Yeah, it's a good one.
I'm going to add that to my list. Okay. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. I think I'd have to go with Alzheimer's. Yeah.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Oh, gosh. Oh, time travel. Does that count as one?
Interesting. Yeah. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, the one that just came to mind. I do not like when people like smack their lips. I don't know. That one came to mind, but I'm sure there are more.
All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness? I mean, maybe we know your answer.
Yeah, I would go back to, the methylation risk scores, right? The FDA approval pathway for a particular disease diagnosis within the realm of the epigenetic field.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Hannah. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more about epigenetics and TruDiagnostic, all the things.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's just TruDiagnostic. It's TruDiagnostic is singular.com if you want to learn more. And I have my podcast, Everything Epigenetics. You can go on my website, everythingepigenetics.com, and check out some previous episodes there. But yeah, had such a great time. Thanks again.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And I truly appreciate your expertise and your passion, the way you explain it in a way that we can all, relate and understand, even if we're not all, health professionals. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, everybody, we'll put links to everything in the episode notes so you can just click there, keep it simple. And then on Friday, we're talking about dead butt syndrome. So for real, this is a thing. It makes me laugh every time I say it. So what is it? What causes it? Why do we need to know about it? And what we can do about it is everything we're going to cover on Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget bonus episode. So be sure, wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button in your app, and then your app will alert you when it is live on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I love hearing from you, your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn about working with me as your health coach. Maybe you're making plans now for 2025. Let's do that together. Hannah Wendt, thank you again for being here and joining us.
Thank you, Jen.
Absolutely. And friend, if you're not already, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithaside-of-fries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and most importantly, it supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the ultimate winter salad. So until next week, remember, your lifestyle is potentially a greater determinant of your health outcomes than your genes. It might be time to take a look at your biological age or with an epigenetic test to help guide you in areas to focus on for your health efforts. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.